thank you so much for doing this. Just share what's your top memories of your time at Miami Middletown are.
Okay. I graduated from Edgewood High School in the summer of 1978, and I had already made plans to come to Miami and Middletown. And my family, being very practical people, said, well, that's just a wonderful place for you to go, and because it's such a good budget or such a good deal for us economically, and you can also get your college degree. And little did I know when I got here that it would be such a marvelous education. And since that time, I have just been so grateful for what I received here. I had marvelous professors. They were small class sizes. They were professors who really interacted with us one-on-one. If we had special needs, if we had just topics we wanted to talk about, they were so approachable, whether we wanted to stay after class or whether we wanted to go up to their office upstairs. They were just wonderful. One of my favorite ones was Dolph Greenberg for anthropology. That was the first class I ever had in first semester. And I had Marion Cheatham Piles for English. And being an English major, that was really important to me too. And she was encouraging of my writing from day one. I just remember my first paper was a descriptive essay, and she was just so, she provided such encouraging feedback. And it wasn't always positive. Of course she gave me, many guidelines for what I should be doing or could be doing, and I tried to implement them. But she was marvelous. Always so enthusiastic and knowledgeable. I had Larry Greason for educational psychology. Absolutely loved him. And I didn't realize that I would love psychology so much, but he had a way of encouraging a dialogue in the classroom and getting us very involved. And I love his tests. They were all essay. They were these 10-question essay tests. He wanted you to include the facts of what we had learned, but the other good thing was we could be as creative as we wanted. I would include Bob Dylan's song lyrics in mine that were, relevant to the topic, and he loved that. So that was a game changer for me, his class too. And I loved Philip Hines for his literature classes. He was challenging. He had a wonderful sense of humor. I got involved in my first semester in the MUM campus chorale with Warren Parker. Loved that. We sang the Messiah around Christmas time, and it was just a beautiful experience. I was always involved in Chaos, the student newspaper. Don't know if the name's been changed since then, but as a creative writer, and that's what I ended up being, English with creative writing emphasis, even the editors of the newspaper were so good to give me gentle guidance, but they were always encouraging.
That's really great. So did you know you wanted to major in English when you came here?
I did. I had a marvelous teacher in high school named Tom Romano, and he has since become internationally known. He is now teaching at the Miami and Oxford campus in the Department of Teacher Education. And so he had made me realize, I had always loved writing, and he made me realize, yes, this can be, whether you do full-time writing or it's just part of your other, your job that you do, writing is very relevant to your life. And so, yes, I came here with that expectation.
And so, did you say you got a degree in English with a creative writing emphasis?
Creative writing emphasis. So I went here my first 2 years, and then I transferred to the Oxford campus. And there I had some wonderful professors too, like James Reese, my poetry professor, Milton White, who was a legendary fiction, professor. He had been Tom Romano's professor as well. And so, I'm so grateful for the education and all of the inspiration that I received during the years that I was here.
Great. And you feel like you've made good use of it since then?
I have, no matter what I did. I mean, I'm a strong proponent of getting an education not only for our jobs but for our lives, because I believe it affects every aspect of what we do. I became, after I got my I went back in 1986. Actually, let me backtrack a minute. I finished my degree in 1982. I worked for a time. In 1984, I went on to UC and majored in English, and was there for the greater part of a year. And then I decided that I just wanted to teach. I had an assistantship there, and I started out just being academic in the English world. And I realized I think I want to be a little more hands-on. I actually want to teach high school students. So I did go on and get a Master of Arts in Teaching from Miami and Oxford in 1986. Oh. And I taught at Talawanda High School from 1987 to 1991. And I decided to stay home with my children, but I considered myself a part-time homeschooler, really, because when they were in preschool age, I did so many creative things with their upbringing, and my education again at Miami was what led me, I think, to be that kind of a parent with them. And my children have done very well because of that time that I spent with them.
I'm sure that was a big factor. Well, that's great. So you mentioned you've several professors and the way they encouraged you or would pay attention to your needs. Is there a specific incident from one class or another that you can really remember that has just stayed with you?
One thing that stayed with me was my first, I mentioned it earlier, my descriptive essay with Marion Cheatham. I remember we had close to 40 people in the room, and I remember I was one of 3 who got an A on that first essay, and I treasured that because I thought, wow, I wouldn't have even dreamed it. I would have expected more like a C or a D, and it wasn't that it was a perfect paper, it was an A minus. But it was marvelous getting that grade and that kind of reinforcement.
And your very first, that was your first writing assignment here?
It was.
That's great.
Another incident that happened was in Larry Greason's class, and I did the first exam with the 10 essay questions. And I was telling somebody before class met that day, well, I'll be glad if I get a C on it, because I was really not sure. And anyway, when we started class, he brought my paper out as an example, and he read some of my answers, and he said, and he wrote on it, he said, continuing to put 10s, and that was the highest you could get. He said, continuing to put 10s on your paper seems small and insignificant. So he said, just allow me to read these and enjoy them. He never marked them anymore after that, but I always got A's from him. And, but not only that, he was just such an inspiration, I think, because he was brilliant in his subject, and he was wonderful in life. He was such an active participant, and he was such a believer in students. It wasn't this holier than thou. It was this wonderful dialogue that, the educator Paulo Freire talks about. Let's have a dialogue. It's not me just giving you facts or me giving you knowledge. And he really lived that.